Hello, everyone. We'll give folks just a second to jump on here. Glad to have everybody here. Just give it 1 second before we get started. All right, I think we can get started here. Good evening, everybody. This is another virtual open house for the bus network redesign effort being held by Valley Metro. I'm Aaron Xavier, the Service Planning and GIS Manager at the agency. Um, I know we've done a couple of these so far. We have a familiar face in the audience. Just want to give a couple of background notes. So we have Luis here on our team to handle interpretation if needed. We also have some elements in the chat for those that have audio or technical issues, directions in English and Spanish to address those. And with that, I will kick it over to Melissa to get us started.
All right, good evening. Thank you for joining us to talk about the Valley Metro Bus Network redesign. Part of the open house today will be doing some interactive polling activities just to get some conversation going about how to improve the bus network. So for this exercise, we'll be using Mentimeter. We'll flash a QR code on the screen in a minute, and you can just use the QR code, or you can go to the website and type in the code to be able to participate in some of the polling activities. You can use a smartphone, you can use your browser. You don't need to download an app or anything like that. So if you're interested in participating, we welcome your input. Completely optional and completely anonymous. So what is the Valley Metro Bus Network redesign? Talking a little bit about the project. So we're really looking at the bus network that's out there today and how we can better align it with how people are traveling, responding to changes that have happened in the region, responding to new developments, plan developments, making sure that the bus system is serving the needs of the community. So what we're looking at is a potential change to every route in the system, looking at route alignments, route frequencies, route spans. We're going to be taking a really detailed look at how everything's operating to create a network that grows ridership and improves the use of available resources. So the project timeline, we kicked this project off last spring. Over the summer, we spent a lot of time diving into the data, looking at ridership patterns, performance patterns, population and employment trends to really understand the market and existing conditions for Valley Metro service. Then over the fall, we've been hosting similar meetings all over the region, in-person open houses, virtual open houses, pop-up meetings at community centers or bus stops, really just listening to the community to understand what is working well and what needs improvement. And then over the next couple of months, we'll be taking all of our findings, the input that we get, and developing some service recommendations for a new proposed bus network. And then we'll come back out next spring with a second round of engagement to share that draft plan and get some feedback on proposed changes. And finally, wrap the project in the summer, presenting a final report. So the goals for today are really to understand community priorities for potential transit improvements, to understand community issues that affect mobility in the Valley Metro service area, and then really discuss ideas for Valley Metro service. So it is interactive, and we're hoping to get feedback on what you'd like to see in your ideal bus network. So here is the QR code that you can scan if you want to do some of our polls, or you can go to www.menti.com with the code 21050368. So just to make sure this is working, want to get a sense of who's here tonight, please let us know how often you ride Valley Metro. Do you ride 5 times a week, 1 to 4 times a week, occasionally, rarely, or never? You don't ride the system and you're interested in learning more about it. Great. Okay. So mostly very regular riders, people who are familiar with the system. So thank you. So the next question is, what city do you live in? Want a sense of who's represented here today? Okay, Fountain Hills and Phoenix. Great. Thank you. So Valley Metro, as I'm sure you are well aware, operates 2 light rail lines, 1 streetcar route, and 95 bus routes, carrying 145,000 daily boardings across all modes. So this map shows average daily boardings by stop across the system. So the bigger the dot, the more people who are using that stop. So green is bus ridership, gray is light rail, and red is streetcar. Ridership, even though we're carrying 145,000 people a day, it's only at about 60% of pre-pandemic levels, while service levels are back to 90%. So one of the things we want to understand in this study is why riders haven't fully returned, even when service is back. So understanding, we've got some survey efforts out there, but really wanting to understand those changes in travel behavior and how the network can respond to those. One of the things we really want to focus on are service design trade-offs. As we're designing our ideal network, go to the next slide. We really have a lot of decisions to make that affect how service is designed, and depending on how we design it, determines how people can use it. So, and then when we're working with limited resources, you know, anytime you've got a fixed number of resources, certain number of buses, if you add service in one area, that means taking service away from somewhere else, or resources away from somewhere else. So we really want to understand what the priorities are so we can design a network that's designed for how people want to use it. So our next poll question, and if you've responded to this question before, if you can go back, I'm not sure it's going to let you vote again, but we will see. So if you are able to rank the following in order of importance to you, shorter wait for the bus, shorter walk to the bus stop, and a shorter travel time on the bus. So but please also feel free to leave a comment in the chat or the Q&A to let us know why you picked the option that you did, wanting to understand what's most important. We generally do see that frequency or shorter wait times outweighs other priorities, generally 2 to 1 in terms of encouraging people to use transit. One of the other things we want to look at is service by time of day. So since the pandemic, we've seen a general shift later in the day, with more activity later in the evenings, less activity, less emphasis in that morning peak. So if you look at the chart here, the purple line is showing when people are riding transit. So you can see we've got two peaks, one around 7 in the morning, one around 4 in the afternoon. Compared to non-transit modes, which and the activity there shifted a little bit later in the day with peaks around 9 a.m. or 5 p.m. And shifting later into the evening as well. So one of the things we want to look at is the demand by time of day, and then how that compares to when transit service is being offered. So the next Mentimeter question asks you, at what time of day is it most important to add more frequency? So is that early in the morning, the middle of the day, the AM peak, the midday? And then based on your answer choice, if you can also let us know either through a comment on if that's on certain routes, or if there's a certain frequency that you're looking for, if that's 20-minute service, 15-minute service, 10-minute service, what that frequency means to you. The next question is, at what time of day would it be most important to extend service hours? So this is talking about having service earlier in the morning or later in the evenings, if that's on weekdays, Saturdays, or Sundays. And then also you can let us know what time. So if you're looking for service at 4 a.m., service at midnight, what time you'd like to see additional service, or on what routes. Okay, so the vote, oh, sorry, can I read off the votes real quick? So looking at weekday mornings and then Saturday evenings. Okay. So one of the other things we're looking at are fixed route versus on-demand services. So on-demand services like We Ride, Glendale On Board, Chandler Flex have become more popular over the last few years. I'll go to the next slide. These services operate like an Uber or a Lyft, where riders request a trip through an app or a call center, and they can be picked up and dropped off anywhere within that zone to or from designated stops. And it works great in areas that are difficult to serve with a fixed route alignment because you're providing more individualized trips. You can't carry as many people as you can carry with like a 40-foot bus. But it's really helpful for in those more suburban or more rural areas, helping people connect into the broader fixed route network. So the question here is, for a local bus service within your community, do you prefer a fixed route that comes in regular intervals with fixed stops and set schedules, or an on-demand rideshare type service that you need to request when you want a trip? Okay. Split vote. Thank you. So then finally, just looking at which of the following service improvements is most important to you. And please do feel free to raise your hand or leave us a note in the chat on why you picked the answer that you did. So more frequent service, top improvement for someone. And on-time performance is very interesting. So what generally what we find is that frequent service is the number one thing that people consider when looking to use transit, and then reliability or on-time performance is the number one thing that keeps people coming back and using transit on a regular basis. So interesting results. So then this question asks, which of the following capital improvements is most important to you? So we've got bus stop amenities like shade, lighting, signage, and then cleanliness at stops and stations. And then the last question, just generally, what are your ideas to improve Valley Metro service? You came to this meeting today with an interest in the project and the bus system. So let us know if you had a chance to design your ideal network, what would it look like? How would you improve it? Please feel free to leave as many responses as you want, and they should pop up on the screen. Apple Wallet support, open payments, two-way express rapid service, and frequent buses. Okay, thank you. Next bus signs at major transit centers. To know when your next bus is arriving. To know where you need to make your connections. Bus lanes and queue jumps. Would help improve bus speeds, make transit more competitive with other modes. Trains to be 24/7. It's out of service for 3 hours over in the overnight period. Transit signal priority. The issue isn't one car waiting to turn left, it's a bus with 25 people on it. So yeah, in line with bus lanes and queue jumps, figuring out how to give transit priority over other modes. Okay, so in terms of next steps, so we're finalizing the collection of input. This is our last open house meeting. We have a number of a couple pop-up events remaining over the next week or so, but then we're really going to be taking all of the input, closing the survey, analyzing the results to start to develop recommendations for the service plan. And as I said earlier, coming back in the spring of next year with that proposed plan to get some feedback through similar meetings. So if you haven't already, please go onto the Valley Metro website. There's a survey there with a lot of similar questions, but goes into a lot more detail about how you travel and what your priorities are. And then, yeah, we can open it up for any further discussion, or if we got any comments or questions in the chat.
Question is, will the light rail ever be a 24/7 service?
Hi, I can take that. So we do get a lot of comments on the 24-hour service for the light rail. I think one of the limitations for that is what we call an maintenance window for the not only the track but the vehicles to make sure that there is a good amount of time for work to be done that's necessary, mainly on the track. But there has been some consideration of an overlapping bus service during those times, which would both allow us to widen that maintenance window and still provide that 24-hour service along that alignment. So I think that is a possibility, but just not on the rail specifically, but in those corridors.
One of the other comments from earlier in the polls was shorter wait time since it's usually hot outside and not much shade. And Lauren also said a 24/7 bus service would be better. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. I think that's one of the trade-offs that we're discussing here in terms of, productivity versus coverage, and coverage not just geographically but in time. Because I know usually we do have the peaks, obviously AM peak, PM peak, about 6 to 6 during the day, more or less. But we are seeing a lot more travel skewed past 6, so it's like 6 to 9, 6 to 10. So the very late night service, the owl service, we did have a little bit more before COVID that got cut back. It hasn't been, has essentially been one of the last things, if one of the only things that hasn't really been added back on some of the routes. So that is a possibility to provide that lifeline service, probably at a lower frequency, but if that is a priority for the region that we hear in some of these discussions, then we'll entertain that in some of the recommendations to come.
Even earlier today, right on Valley Metro's Facebook page, the biggest infrastructure complaint seems to be the QR code scanners. There is definitely fair revenue sitting on the table due to these things not scanning.
Hi there, this is Dane with the FAIR programs. I can take that. We do get a lot of feedback about the QR codes, and we are continually monitoring and making adjustment to those devices to make sure that they're as operable as possible. But we do have plans to also do a digital copper card and eventually open payments down the road, which will help us to move away from the QR code in a lot of cases. So we are monitoring that, and we do make adjustments on our bus fleet weekly to devices that are underperforming just to make sure we're capturing as much as possible.
Yes, those scanners are very flawed. I was able to use one today. Tap to fare would be a good idea with a digital copper card on the phone. Also, the ability to board an entire group of people with one fare instrument. Many times families are going out and $4 a piece copper card isn't going to work for them when they are spending pretty much double on the day fare as well as the price of the cards. Open payment negates this.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that feedback, and that is one one piece of feedback we frequently get, especially for less frequent writers. Open payments will and may or may not fully address that issue because open payments still will allow for fare capping, which adds more complexity with how the system responds to a tap. So if you tap a credit card, it is going to have the smart fare just like it would with the copper card. So there are some complexities to whether or not it would accept additional taps beyond that. I know in other cities with other systems, you can tap a card multiple times, but we're not quite that far along in the design to determine how it will respond. But having a credit card for each individual is probably a little easier than purchasing a copper card, to your point. So definitely look forward to that update.
Ability to manage physical cards with Valley Metro app when Open Payments launches. Ability to see smart fare from linked card and app.
Yeah, we're in the design phase for having the copper card management in the app right now, probably something in 2026 at this point, but you will be able to manage any copper card that you have on your account as well as your app account all within the app, and that would basically bypass the need to use the website if you prefer to use the app for that. So that part will come pretty soon. How open payments and other pieces of that integrate will be determined later on, but management of the physical card in the app should be next year. I just don't have an exact timeline yet.
Two-way express buses, also possibility of lowering express rapid fare to regular fare to promote more usage.
Yeah, so we have definitely been entertaining the idea of the two-way express. I think it's fairly feasible financially given the way that the service is billed, um, at least in a large part of the valley by hour. So it would be a fairly affordable change to make. So some of them are billed by revenue hour, but ultimately, I guess when it all comes out in the wash, once you bill by hour, doing the two-way versus the one-way is virtually the same cost. Um, So I think that's definitely something that we've heard of. There would also be some, I guess, lingering issues logistically to handle. I think so. Usually they were oriented to serve the downtown core, so a lot of them start at park and rides with varying degrees of local service to connect folks with other locations. So some of them are well connected, some of them not so much. Um, I know recent grants from the city of Phoenix have actually aimed to pair the two-way expresses with microtransit option or some kind of a mobility on-demand option that allows folks at the other end to get, to that first last mile solution that they need. So I think some more of that may need to be explored in areas where the local service isn't quite as robust to make those connections. But um, I think that's definitely worth exploring. And I know that usually on these services, at least with the built-in ridership, a lot of the folks use platinum passes, so the fares are not quite as big of a barrier. But definitely, if we're looking to expand the ridership, we're doing park and ride to park and ride type expresses from say Deer Valley to even Superstition Springs, which we've done modeling on, so all the way down the 17, all the way to the 60. Um, or folks, going to the airport that may not have access to platinum passes, that may become a little bit more of an issue. Um, so we can look into that, though, of course, those trips are usually much longer and much more costly because the passenger per mile is much higher, or the mileage per passenger. So that's usually why those services are billed a little bit higher, but definitely something to consider.
And I will quickly add to that. We are kind of wrapping up a fare study right now, and we will be doing at least a triennial review of our fare structure. And that actually is one of the considerations that our board heard in October, was if there should be any adjustments to particularly to the reduced fare on Express and Rapid, because currently there's not a reduced fare option. But one of the three considerations was aligning reduced fare, or sorry, Express Rapid pricing with our local. I don't know that that's necessarily going to be a short-term thing, and to Aaron's point, it might require that the service be reviewed and adjusted to really need to drive that. But it is something that has been kind of looked at and considered for a future update or consideration of an update to our fare policy. But again, I think the service probably needs to model something that's more attractive to a broader audience in addition to the fare structure as well.
Use the VIX trip planner on the main Valley Metro website. If using website from the computer, one should be able to track buses and trains live on there as well.
Yeah, we are actually looking at options to ensure that our website trip planning and tracking is more in line, or at least the app and the website are aligned together. There's a few different ways that that might be achieved. I do believe in other markets they are using, in Dallas, the VIX trip planner on their website. We actually do have a web version, but it's not fully functional from a customer perspective, but definitely appreciate the feedback. And we are trying to make sure that they're aligned so that the experience is more unique, or in sync across both different options.
Also, get the light rail team to post updates in the main app, not the Alert Valley Metro app. They seem to only post it in Alert VM when it's something urgent, and lots of people are not getting the info and platform changes, etc., that they need.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that feedback. I think some of that is due to the timing and the longevity of any impacts that may be happening. Some of the alerts that go into Alert VM are more about delays, which in the app you have the real-time information, so it may not necessarily need to be posted there. However, I do agree if there's like single tracking or any kind of incident that may interrupt service, definitely should be posted in the Valley Metro app. Has much higher usage, so appreciate that feedback, and we'll pass it along as well.
Also, Alert VM, but for buses. Not everyone is in a position to be able to make a phone call to customer service when an incident is occurring in the back of the bus, and you are trying to be discreet, so alerting the driver isn't an option.
Yeah, I do believe that you can actually use those for both. I think it's really marketed for the rail, but I believe we were told by security that they will still get those alerts
I
for bus or rail. Is that correct?
I can answer that. Yes, our team who manages the Alert VM app, they can assist with um with any incident, with any ongoing incident on board the bus. However, they don't have the power to dispatch security or send our staff if it's a maintenance issue or something like that. Um, when it comes to the bus side, what they would do is they would call customer service and try to assist that customer through customer service. So that's why it's really marketed towards rail. I will definitely pass along that feedback. This is something that we'd love to be able to implement. Um, However, our bus network is a much bigger ground to cover than our rail operations. So there is a concern about cost there as well, but it is definitely something that I'll pass along to our teams.
A system to report bus pass-ups, wheelchair pass-ups, etc. Especially, there needs to be better training for operators to put up the correct destination sign if a bus is too full, etc.
Yeah, that's duly noted. I think pass ups are probably our number one complaint. Um, and so it is kind of a constant battle to make sure that that's not happening. Um, so yeah, we continue to work on that with operator training and making sure that people aren't getting passed up. Because usually I think the system would be just to call customer service, which I know can take a little bit of time. Um, so there may be a more efficient way to do that, but for now I think it's all funneled through customer service.
Yesterday on the way.
A new
Go ahead,
person
Melissa.
join. Sorry, it looked like we had someone new join. We wanted to the polls or see if they wanted to provide any comments. Randy, you're on. Or- All right, Randy, you can go back to the comments.
One was yesterday on the way home from the in-person meeting. Someone was complaining about getting passed up in a wheelchair. This is where the Alert VM app should be expanded to buses. And the other one said, I usually get passed up if I'm standing there or sitting if lucky and a bus just goes by. Mostly because people who are not taking the bus are sitting at the stop and the driver assumes no one wants the bus.
Yeah, I think you hit on a key kind of tension point there, Lauren, where we have a lot of people, unfortunately, that do just kind of use those shelters, those benches for, rest and other uses. And often the bus drivers are making lots of split-second decisions, trying to figure out if somebody's actually taking the bus or not. Having the pressure to remain on time to the schedule, not usually intentionally passing people up, but unsure exactly if those folks are or aren't riding. So we do try to encourage folks to stand up and wave the bus down if they are going, but we know that it can be, not always possible, or you can't always necessarily notice the bus in time. But I think that it's kind of a perennial problem that we do have.
There also needs to be serious stop consolidation. Some bus stops are ridiculously close together, one on one side of the intersection and then one across the street. With enough luck, both have people waiting at them, so we stop twice.
So that is within the scope of this study. So I think based on ridership and basically the context of the area, we'll probably be able to consolidate some of the stops. Because yeah, it does impact travel time, on-time performance, and things of that nature, with the variability of having everybody at stops or nobody at stops, and trying to plan around that is a little bit easier with the stop consolidation. Um, and obviously, we do have challenges with heat and other things that people don't want to walk too far. But even in a densely populated urban area, we don't need to have stops at every block.
Push alerts not only to the Valley Metro app, but make sure they are properly being pushed out to Apple Maps, Transit Apple, and Google Maps as well. Many ASU students I have noticed use these to plan trips simply because it already comes with their phones. They are missing stop closures.
Anada, do you know if that's possible to communicate those out to those, or is it a little bit more difficult than just pushing it out to our own?
I honestly do not know what would involve in that process, but I can reach out to our IT department and see what the possibilities are. I know that Dane has more knowledge about our
Yeah,
app than me, so
yeah, typically anything that we push out does get distributed to the other platforms, although bus stop closures, depending on the timing, may act a little different. I don't know that I've in particular looked at that specific one. But typically if there's any kind of interruption, like a canceled trip or anything like that, it would go to all of them. So we'll have to go back and see if, specifically if bus stop closures is an issue or if there's anything else that may not translate over to the other platforms the same way.
Currently, Apple Maps does not properly show stop closures. I have seen people waiting at these closed stops. In LA, Apple Maps would show no service on the bus stop that is closed.
Yeah, we can track that down and see where that isn't translating over to those, because like I said, other interruptions typically do. So we'll have to double check and see if it's something that is impacted by how it's entered or where that connection breaks down, but we'll look at it.
The train digital signs at the station should be showing the next train arrival, not just the next ride ID and current time, like every other city in the US and maybe the world.
Yeah, agreed. I think we may have discussed this, but we are looking into those options to give basically real-time arrivals based on locations at stations. And I know I was up at Metro Center today, and we have those nice e-paper readers that give them for buses as well at that terminal, which is pretty convenient for the next two arrivals. Um, but I think something like that is in the works for the broader rail potentially. But that is a frequently requested add-on beyond just the 2-minute warning.
The train arrival announcements are usually inaccurate. The next northbound train will arrive in 2 minutes, and it ends up being over 5 minutes later.
Yeah, I think those are because they're more distance based than like any kind of extrapolation for speed or something like that. Um, Often if there's a holdup at a train station or something like that that is within the geofenced area where it's basically making those calls to, you're right, there can be some variation in those, but um, I think usually the real-time tracking ends up being a little bit better that we're trying to move to.
Is there a way to possibly use the screen on a section of the fare machine for this, specifically when the screensavers are just showing?
It may be possible. I'm not entirely sure if that could be added on, but that is a good idea.
Yeah, that's good space, but yeah, we'd have to look into it and see what the options are from a technical perspective and how complex that may be.
Recently, Dallas added this as an option where there's a button to select next arrivals right on the fare machine.
Yeah, we can certainly ask the question and see, from a technical perspective, what would be required. Obviously, a cost, I'm sure, but good idea to have that space that's already there.
And this is far out there, but Australia puts them on the emergency call boxes. But of course, this would be more extensive than using the fare machines, which also have a screen. The return of limited stop services on high use routes.
So I think we talked a little bit the other day about the link, and that was kind of a hit or miss. We talked, I think, a little bit about the confusion that that had with some of the folks. I think maybe not being marketed or communicated right to folks that were just kind of getting on the first bus. Um, so I think we're looking more at limited stop services on high use routes from a BRT perspective at this point. But I think similar basic concept, just a little bit more beefier with queue jumps and the uh, transit signal priority, um, and things of that nature that would accompany it, but probably also better marketing as well. That those aren't going to hit every single local stop for folks that don't want to blow by those lesser stops. But yeah, that's a possibility.
This was from 1999 or so, but the Route 7L was limited stop, etc. This was, of course, when Valley Metro was a much smaller agency. Valley Metro generate marketing by selling Valley Metro merchandise at Central Station, ugly Christmas sweaters, logoed products, etc. There's definitely a fan base out there. MARTA, UTA, and even MCTS does this.
Hi, Aaron. Yeah, it's a great idea. It is something that I will definitely bring up to our marketing team so we can see so how we can create a model that would make sense in terms of cost and etc. But it is something that it's feedback that we'll certainly share with our teams.
Right and wrong shirts would be cool.
When we have those conversations with our marketing team, I'll mention right and wrong shirts. Right and wrong Halloween costumes. That's also a good idea. They are not cigarettes, right or wrong. They are um they are not traffic cones, but they are I forgot. I'm blanking on the name. Do you know the name, Aaron?
I'm not sure. I think the heads light up, but
Yeah. Yeah, Aaron, we haven't been using we have not been using right and wrong as often as we had in the past, but when we have special events um like Fiesta, we usually bring them out and we have our mascots at special events and such.
The Siemens cars, for example, don't have any right and wrong signage. Maybe one about tapping every time you ride, etc.
Oh yeah, I'll that's also a great another good idea. We are definitely trying to encourage more people to tap and scan their fare before they board. So it is something that I can also bring up to our marketing team.
You should have a right and wrong slogan. And expand them to say to the bus system as well. Right does not cross in front of the bus. Right exits the rear door. Wrong forces his way out the front door.
Aaron, recently we actually launched a new safety marketing campaign. I don't know if you've seen our yellow banners and posters and other printed signage that says "Live to ride another day, live to walk another day," where we are promoting um, promoting safety tips and encouraging people to respect our code of conduct.
Don't retire right and wrong, though. These guys are mascots and people do talk about them, even people who only ride occasionally.
Hey, this is Michael Ushelman, Deputy Chief of Service Planning at Valley Metro. Given we've run out of questions about bus network redesign, I think we're going to close this down at 7 o'clock. If there is continued appetite for discussion specifically about how the bus service is working or not working, we can continue that conversation, but we've moved pretty far from that particular discussion. So 7 o'clock will be the new end time of this meeting. Thank you.
Also, one last thing, expand copper cards to paratransit, ride choice, microtransit, and possibly future bike share. We want a truly multimodal integrated network. Fare integration goes a long way.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that feedback and agree, as seamless as we can make it across all modes and options, the better. Obviously, that'll take some technical time and money and resources, as well as integrating the service itself. But we'll definitely take that back and look at that in the future. And, there are other considerations with the app on how we're integrating some of the other services we provide. So that'll certainly be a part of that discussion.
Lauren said, thank you so much for all you do. You guys are doing a great job. I'm glad you're taking riders' comments and concerns into account.
Thank you. Glad to have the feedback. Feel free to take the survey as well. We have a comment map as well on the website. So we'd love to hear from you on the survey or having some comments on the comment map. So here are those links with the phone number and an email if that is easier for you all. So I believe with that, we will close it out. Thank you, everybody, for all of the comments, questions that we got here today. Again, feel free to peruse the website. We have a nice story map up there, as well as a landing page with the survey. So it gives all kinds of background in addition to what you've heard here tonight. But with that, we will say goodbye and hope to see some of you all at the continued pop-ups, which should occur through the week before Thanksgiving. And of course, the website and the survey will be open up through November 30. And after that, the survey will close, but the website will remain open as the project continues. Thank you all.